Hi there everybody. Now in this video I just want to answer a question that I keep getting asked and I'm fed up of answering it, so I'm making this video so that when people ask me why there are different colour buses in Wellington all of a sudden, I can send them a copy of this video. Okay, so we all know what Go Wellington buses look like, okay? They are yellow and black, okay? And they've been that way ever since 2007, and everyone's got used to it. So everyone's now suddenly puzzled when silver and blue buses turn up to their bus stop. And a lot of people have been asking me, why is it that Go Wellington is suddenly operating buses in different colours? Well, there is an explanation, and it starts actually at the very beginning of NZ Bus. Now you see, NZ Bus began in 2007 when Stagecoach New Zealand sold all of its New Zealand operations to Infratil. Now, Stagecoach had operations in Auckland and in Wellington, including the Hutt Valley. And basically what happened is Stagecoach said that's it, we've had enough. They sold their operations to Infratil, and what was Stagecoach New Zealand became NZ Bus. Now, when this happened, NZ Bus split up each of the operations into a series of different brand names. So, and I've divided it into a handy little chart. So if I get my mouse, so in Auckland you had Metrolink, which serves the central city. You've got North Star in the north, Waka Pacific, which serves South Auckland, and Go West for West Auckland. So, and then in Wellington you have Go Wellington for all of the central city areas and all of that, and Valley Flyer, which is for the Hutt Valley, and which is what used to be Stagecoach's City Line brand. And also obviously the Airport Flyer as well, but that's a private enterprise that NZ Bus does outside of regular contract. It's complicated. Now the fact is that the thing that most people don't realise is that all of these 6 different bus companies aren't actually different bus companies. They're all NZ Bus. It's not a different company, but a different branding. If you know what I mean, like another example would be Countdown supermarkets. Now, Countdown is known by another name in Australia. If you go to Australia, you'll find not Countdown but Woolworths. And Woolworths is the company that actually owns Countdown. And we used to have Woolworths in New Zealand until Woolworths bought out Countdown. And what happened is the Countdown brand was more common and also more recognisable in New Zealand, so they kept the Countdown brand but kept Woolworths in Australia. And it's kind of like that. It's the same company, but it has different names depending on where you are, and it's a bit like that on a smaller scale. So just looking at Wellington here, Go Wellington and Valley Flyer are the same company. It's just a different name depending on where in Wellington you are. Now, this branding scheme would also mean that the different buses in each region would have their own colour scheme. So Metrolink buses are blue and silver, North Star are light blue and amber, Waka Pacific buses were silver, Go West silver and green, Go Wellington yellow and black, and Valley Flyer purple with orange highlights. And they chose different colours and different logos and everything. Now, what exactly does happen, okay? Well, in 2016, NZ Bus lost the contract for operations in South Auckland. They got taken over by Go Bus and by Ritchie's coach lines, and that was served by the Waka Pacific brand. And what happened is because that contract was lost, they didn't need those vehicles from the Waka Pacific branding anymore. And meanwhile, the council in Wellington made some changes to the Wellington bus network that would mean that Go Wellington would need more buses in service to account for the increase in frequency to some of the services. So the logical thing to do was to take the vehicles from Auckland that were no longer required up there and bring them to Wellington where they were required. Simple, really. And that is why the buses are blue or silver, because they still carry the colours of the brand that they ran under in Auckland. These buses have not been bought second-hand. There's no company that's been bought out. This is simply transferring from one company to another within the same company. And actually, I will also explain that NZ Bus actually later regretted the idea of choosing different bus colours for different regions. They later realised that it wasn't as good an idea in practice, and eventually they decided that in Auckland they had a plan to paint all of the Auckland buses into the blue and silver livery. So the 3 blue buses that were in Wellington were actually Waka Pacific rather than Metrolink, because they had actually planned to paint all of Auckland's buses blue and silver to make things easier. But however, that actually never happened in the end, because Auckland Transport brought in the AT Metro livery for the whole of the Auckland network. So now all of the buses in Auckland from all companies are getting that instead. And in fact, the same thing's going to happen in Wellington next year. Now, I do also want to talk about Mana Coach Services, because they've done a similar thing with their sister company. Now, we all know that Mana and Newlands buses are green, okay? I mean, anybody who lives in Wellington has seen a Mana bus, and they know that Mana buses are the green ones, except for these two, which appear to be a sort of beige and browny purple colour maroon. Why is that? Well, you see, more timetable changes in Wellington meant that Mana needed more buses to run out of their Newlands depot, and that meant taking buses away from Porirua and transferring them to Newlands. However, when they did that, they then discovered that they didn't have enough buses left to run their services in Porirua. But Mana is owned by a company called Emotion Group, which also owns several other bus companies in New Zealand, including Howick and Eastern in Auckland. It also includes Fuller's and Reesby and other companies as well. But what this does is it effectively makes them sister companies. Now, both of them are separate companies. They operate independently from each other. They've all got their own, CEOs. They've all got their own head offices. They've got their own fleets, and they're all separate businesses. They've just got a common owner. Now, the Howick and Eastern buses are with Mana because they are extra buses, like I just said, because they needed the extra buses, so they brought them. In fact, they actually did that now. The two that are here have been here actually since the end of 2015, so they've been here now for about 18 months, in fact. There have been others here as well. I think at one point there were up to 5 Howick buses in Porirua. Now we're left with just these 2. But yeah, and basically as soon as Mana no longer has a requirement for those buses, then they will send them back to Auckland. Really, you can think of it as Mana borrowing the buses. Again, the buses haven't been bought, there's been no buying here. They're sister companies with a common owner. So Howick and Eastern is more than happy to turn around and say, oh look Mana, we've got 2 buses just sitting here that we're not using, so you can use them for the time being. Because let's not forget that they both have the same owners, so they can do that. And companies within Emotion Group often trade and swap buses with each other for little, or even in this case 0 cost, because it's all one owner. I mean, yes, they're small companies, but they're all one common owner under one big family. And Emotion Group is Brian Souter, the Scottish guy who owns Stagecoacher in the UK, or whatever it is he does. So Emotion Group is Souter's company, and all of the Emotion Group Souter companies often trade vehicles. If they don't need a vehicle, then they'll often give it to another company within Emotion Group that does need it. So that's it. That is why there are some funny coloured buses in Wellington at the moment. So hopefully that answers your question and explains exactly why that is. That's it for now, guys. I'll see you in the next video.